Will we see playoff changes in 2025? NASCAR gave us an answer on Monday. Legacy Motor Club has a new majority owner. We know what Corey Lajoie's plans are going to be for 2025. Plus, we have a few other things we need to talk about. Welcome back to Break Hard. I'm Matt. It's officially race week. Somebody put up that stupid Ferrari graphic because the Cup Series is headed to Bowman Gray Stadium this weekend for the Clash. Things get started on Saturday at 1:45 p.m. on Flow Racing. We have the modified race from Bowman Gray Stadium. And then at 6:10 p.m. we have NASCAR Cup Series practice and qualifying on FS1. And then at 8:30 we have the Cup Series heat races from Bowman Gray Stadium to set the field for the Clash on Sunday night. Both of those events are on FS1. On Saturday at 6 p.m., we have the Last Chance qualifier race on Network Fox. And then at 8 p.m. on Big Fox, once again, we have the Clash at Bowman Gray Stadium. Very excited for it. But before we get into the actual big news of the day, let's talk about a few of the minor things real quick. The Wood Brothers put out the paint scheme that Josh Berry will run at the Clash this weekend, that number 21 Wood Brothers car. It is a throwback to Glenwood's 1937 Ford. I kind of just like the all basic red on it. I actually really enjoyed this one. We'll wait to see what the paint scheme guy on TikTok says. And then we also got the paint scheme for Christopher Bell. He'll be running a Mobil 1 paint scheme for the Clash. I've always enjoyed anything that Mobil 1 puts on race cars. It typically looks really good, and they did a really good job once again here. We also got Nice Motorsports announcing the lineup for the number 41 truck in 2025. It will be split amongst three drivers: Matt Gold, Ross Chastain, and Bailey Curry. Pretty decent lineup there, and Nice is looking pretty stout. I think they could potentially surprise some people this year. So let's get into the actual big news of the day. And we're going to start off with the NASCAR playoff format, because at the end of last year, after Joey Logano won his championship and all the fans got up in arms and pissed off about it, even though it wasn't Joey's fault that Alex Bowman, failed post-race inspection at the Roval, everybody still blamed Joey and, said that this is the reason why the playoffs suck. Hey, you can have your own opinions for it, but by the rules, he went ahead and won it. Well, NASCAR announced on Monday that there will be no changes made to the playoff format for 2025. A group has been established, though, to take an in-depth look at the current playoff format and determine if any changes, tweaks, or a potential huge overhaul need to be made for it in 2026 and beyond. But NASCAR didn't want to continue just making tiny tweaks to something like this, which I'm actually 100% supportive of. I don't think that there needed to be I didn't want to see a knee-jerk reaction major overhaul. I think that would have been potentially detrimental to the sport. You have a system right now, certainly has its flaws, don't get me wrong, but it works in a sense. If you go in there and make a knee-jerk reaction and then everything goes haywire, that's really bad for the sport. The new NASCAR regime is willing to take a step back, look at things, and then make an informed decision from that aspect. I think that the older regimes in NASCAR, potentially in the 2000s and early 2010s, would make a much more rash decision, make that knee-jerk reaction, and something that could be detrimental to the sport. So I'm actually in favor of the wait and see approach that they're doing this year. I don't think it's a bad thing at all. I would much rather them make the right decision than make a wrong decision and then have everybody be super upset. But NASCAR did acknowledge that they have heard the fans' response to the playoffs. And one thing they mentioned was that there's typically three groups of people, or three groups of thought amongst the fan base for it. It's either I love the playoffs and I love the storylines that come along with it. I hate the playoffs, go back to the 36 race championship, or I like the playoffs, but I want to see changes made, just not sure what changes. Now, I think I probably fall into the I don't mind the playoffs, but I want to see changes made category here. I understand the need for a playoff. I absolutely understand it. If you want a 36 race championship, you're just never getting it. So go ahead and take that thought out of your brain, pack it up into a storage box, put it off into your attic. And then every now and then when you're up in your attic, you open that box up, you're like, oh yeah, I remember I do have this. And then you close it up and you go back downstairs and you forget about it for the next 5 to 7 years. And then you go back up and look at it again, and it doesn't really hold any value anymore. You remember the good times, but it's never going to come back. Let's talk about the actual, potential for the playoffs here. What I would like to see happen is either A, you go back to the original chase format, 10 races, whoever has the most points at the end of that, wins the championship. I can get down with that. Or you give us a 3-race final round. Whoever has the most points amongst those 4 drivers at the end of that 3-race final round wins the championship. I talked about it, at the end of last year. Ideally, I would have a wild card race as that first race and then have a 3-race, championship round from there. I think that's, the easiest way to do it. After that wild card race, you eliminate 4 drivers. Yeah, it's aggressive. It's like Mr. Beast games. Right off the bat, we are just dropping 4 immediately out of it. I think that maybe something like that happens on The Bachelor, Bachelorette. I couldn't give you an informed take on that, but I believe that is what happens there as well. You want dramatic, there's your dramatic. And then you have a 3-race, 3-round playoff, and you have your 4 final drivers race that final 3 races, and winner take all from there. I think that might be the best way to do it, but we'll wait and see what the NASCAR brain trust in that group comes up with, and I'm here to see it. If you watched the Rolex 24 Hours at Daytona coverage this past weekend on NBC/Peacock, whatever you consumed it on, Jimmie Johnson was on the broadcast, and he was talking about how he wants to expand Legacy Motor Club into a global motorsports brand, potentially even joining IMSA. That's one of his goals, is to get his company into IMSA. And you're like, all right, it's going to take some money to do it. Not sure how you're going to do this unless you're going to really start pocketing, some of these racing programs. And then we found out on Monday that, hey, Jimmie Johnson has found an investor, and Jimmie Johnson is now the majority owner of Legacy Motor Club. Maury Gallagher, who was previously the majority owner, has taken a step back from day-to-day operations and will continue on as a brand ambassador to the program. But Jimmie Johnson now has the majority ownership in that team, and he has also brought in Nighthead Capital Management, which will be a minority owner in the team as well. So that is a little bit of an influx in cash that team really probably needs right now as they try to right the ship on their NASCAR Cup Series program. You're not familiar with who Nighthead is, don't worry, I wasn't either until this morning, but they are investors in Hertz, Jota, which is the World Endurance Championship team, will be the factory Cadillac team in 2025 as well. Singer Automotive, which builds those absolutely beautiful Porsches, if you've got $1 million to drop on those, as well as the Birmingham City Football Club. Not the one in Alabama, rather the one over in Europe with the crazy accents and, kind of the south of Europe, honestly, if you think about it. They're not south, but when you hear the accent, you're like, okay, now that actually makes some sense here. But they brought in money, and I think that is a good thing for that team. Now we'll see if their performance increases with their new partnership that they have here as well, because Jimmie is still not willing to spend the money to get that sweet, sweet Toyota data from Joe Gibbs Racing by paying to have an alliance over there. They're trying to do it the hard way. They're trying to go out there and plow a field with a mule when they could just go get a John Deere, and they refuse to do it, which I respect, but at some point, it might just be worth spending that money for a couple years just to see your performance move up a little bit there. But I think that this is the right move for Legacy Motor Club going forward. And then we also learned on Monday where Corey Lajoie will be spending his 2025 at, and it will be in a part-time seat at Rick Ware Racing in the NASCAR Cup Series, driving the now renumbered 01 car for that team. The 01 was renumbered to align with Corey Lajoie's Stacking Pennies brand, the podcast that he has over with NASCAR. So he will do select races there, starting off with the Daytona 500. He has Take 5 oil change, as well as a few other partners on the car with him. In addition to that, we also found out that Amazon Prime, well, Prime Video, whatever you want to refer to it as, on their NASCAR coverage will have Corey Lajoie and Danielle Trotta doing pre-race and post-race coverage for them at the track. That is one thing that they posted in their tweet, is that they will be live on site for the pre-race and post-race coverage, and that is a massive win for the fans and a clear shot at some of the media partners, specifically Fox, who don't want to send their talent to the racetrack to continue to, cut costs there. For Prime, I think that this is absolutely massive. I'm a huge fan of this move. I think Corey Lajoie has a really good future on the media side of things, and I think this is a great way to sort of get the feet wet for that. But Bob Pockris talked to him about, not wanting to leave the Cup Series and go down to the Truck Series full-time, maybe win a race or two down there and try to John Hunter Nemechek your way back to the top. And Corey said, hey, listen, I could do that. I could go down there, maybe win a race or two, but he said it feels like a lot of guys that make that move end up being truck lifers, and he's focused on racing on Sundays, which I can respect, but man, is it just become harder and harder to make that dream a reality. But he will be part-time in 2025 with Rick Ware Racing, as Cody Ware will drive that 51 car full-time for the team this season. So a lot of news on Monday. Let me know in the comments what you think about everything that I talked about, whether it be the NASCAR playoffs, Jimmie Johnson Legacy Motor Club, Corey Lajoie, Nice Motorsport lineup, the paint schemes, or the schedule going forward into Bowman Gray this weekend. Like and subscribe to the channel. Follow me on TikTok at BreakHard, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at BreakHardBlog.